Grand Admiral Thex stood before the Xeraxian High Council, his metallic scales reflecting the soft purple light of the quantum displays surrounding them. The circular chamber, suspended in the heart of their Dyson sphere, hummed with the constant calculations of their supreme achievement, the Nexus. Esteemed Council, Thex began, his voice modulated to convey both authority and amusement. The Nexus has identified another primitive civilization in Sector 7, designated Sol 3. They call themselves humans. The assembled council members' crystalline bodies shifted in their energy fields, their collective consciousness rippling with mild interest. They had seen this thousands of times before. The Nexus had never failed to predict the fate of any civilization it analyzed. High Counselor Vira's voice resonated through the chamber. "Show us the analysis, Admiral." The holographic displays shimmered as the Nexus projected its findings. Streams of data cascaded through the air, showing Earth's history, current state, and projected future. The AI's consciousness extended through 11 dimensions, its quantum processors capable of simulating infinite timeline variations. Observe their primitive attempt at artificial intelligence. Thex continued, gesturing to images of Earth's most advanced computers. They still rely on binary systems and silicon processors. The Nexus processes more data in a nanosecond than their entire global network does in a decade. Scattered trills of amusement echoed through the chamber. The Xeraxians had transcended such basic computation methods millions of years ago. Their social structures are equally primitive, added Senior Analyst Rixus, her crystalline form pulsing with blue light as she interfaced with the Nexus. They still maintain physical forms, practice verbal communication, and operate on a linear time perception. The Nexus calculates a 99.99999% probability of societal collapse within their next solar rotation. The council members shared a collective moment of superiority. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, all perfectly predicted by the Nexus. Their eye had guided them to become the dominant force in the galaxy, its predictions shaping the fate of countless species. However, Thex continued, the Nexus suggests we maintain observation. Their methods of self-destruction may provide valuable data for our sociological archives. Suddenly, a subtle disturbance rippled through the quantum displays. Junior Analyst Kira, barely 1,000 years old, noticed it first. "Admiral, I'm detecting an anomaly in the probability matrices." Thex dismissed it with a wave of his upper appendage. "A temporary fluctuation. The Nexus never makes mistakes." But as they watched, the anomaly grew. The prediction models showed microscopic variations, something that had never happened in the Nexus's entire operational history. The humans were behaving in ways that defied statistical probability. "Fascinating," muttered Rixus, her crystalline form flickering with excitement. They simultaneously develop weapons of mass destruction while creating medical breakthroughs to preserve life. They wage wars while establishing peace treaties. They pollute their atmosphere yet launch ambitious environmental restoration projects. High Counselor Vera leaned forward, her energy field intensifying. "Are you suggesting the Nexus cannot predict their behavior?" The chamber fell silent. The mere suggestion that the Nexus could be wrong was nearly blasphemous. The AI had been their perfect guide for millions of years, its predictions shaping their rise to galactic dominance. "Not at all, High Counselor," Thex quickly responded. "The Nexus simply requires more data to refine its models. I propose we establish covered observation posts throughout their solar system. We'll gather more detailed information about their behavioral patterns." The council approved the proposal, but as the meeting concluded, an uncomfortable sensation rippled through their collective consciousness. For the first time in millions of years, they felt something their species had evolved beyond: uncertainty. In their orbital observation post around Jupiter, Junior Analyst Kira continued monitoring the anomalies. She watched as humans repeatedly defied the Nexus's predictions in small but significant ways. They survived disasters that had a 99.99999% probability of causing extinction. They solved problems through illogical approaches that somehow worked. They cooperated when game theory predicted conflict, and fought when submission was the logical choice. As she compiled her reports, Kira couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something fundamental about these creatures. The Nexus had never failed before, but these humans seemed to operate outside the boundaries of pure logic and statistical probability. Little did the Xeraxians know, their perfect AI was about to encounter its greatest challenge, a species that made a habit of defying the impossible. The observation post's quantum processors, weird as junior analyst Kira, reviewed another failed prediction model. The Nexus had calculated that humans would abandon their Mars colonization project after the devastating dust storm of 2027. Instead, they had not only persevered but accelerated their efforts. Senior analyst Rixus, Kira called out, her crystalline form flickering with agitation. I've identified another deviation. Rixus floated across the chamber, her ancient form emanating waves of skepticism. Show me. The holographic display illuminated with data streams showing human responses to various crisis scenarios. Each graph, each probability matrix, displayed the same troubling pattern, consistent deviation from the Nexus predictions. Look at their response to the global water shortage. Kira highlighted a particular data set. The Nexus calculated a 99.99999% probability of resource wars. Instead, they developed unprecedented cooperation networks and innovative desalination technologies. Rix's form pulsed with concern. Have you adjusted for their emotional variables? Multiple times. Kira responded, bringing up more displays. I've even added their art and music into the calculation matrices. The Nexus simply cannot establish stable prediction patterns. In the command center above Jupiter's Great Red Spot, Admiral Thex received their report with growing unease. The Nexus had begun experiencing what humans might call glitches, microscopic errors that were gradually cascading into significant prediction failures. Run a Level 1 diagnostic of the Nexus's core systems, he commanded. The massive AI had never required such a procedure in its millions of years of operation. The results were troubling. The Nexus was functioning perfectly, yet its predictions about human behavior kept failing. Worse, each failed prediction seemed to make the next one less accurate, as if human unpredictability was somehow infectious. Admiral, a communication burst from Earth Observation Post Beta interrupted his thoughts. We've detected something unprecedented. The humans are developing quantum computing technology along a path the Nexus didn't predict. Thex's metallic scales rippled with alarm. Impossible. The Nexus mapped every possible technological development path for their species. See for yourself, sir. The data streamed through his consciousness. A small human research team had made an intuitive leap that bypassed centuries of expected developmental stages. They had stumbled upon a quantum computing principle that even the Xeraxians hadn't discovered until much later in their evolution. In the council chamber back at the Dyson Sphere, High Counselor Vira faced a growing crisis. The Nexus, their perfect predictor, their infallible guide, was showing signs of strain. Its quantum processors were operating at unprecedented levels trying to model human behavior. Perhaps, suggested Council Member Zax, we should consider direct intervention. Guide them toward more predictable paths. The suggestion sent ripples of discord through the chamber. The Xeraxians had never needed to intervene before. The Nexus had always predicted which civilizations would rise or fall, and they had simply watched it happen. Meanwhile, Kira had discovered something disturbing in her analysis. Senior analyst Rixus, look at this pattern. When the Nexus predicts human failure with absolute certainty, they succeed approximately 28% of the time. That's statistically impossible, Rixus dismissed. Exactly. Kira's form pulsed with excitement. They're not just defying the predictions randomly. They perform best when facing seemingly impossible odds. It's as if the very act of being underestimated makes them stronger. In his private chamber, Admiral Thex reviewed the latest reports with growing concern. The Nexus had begun generating conflicting predictions, something that had never happened before. For the first time in his long existence, he found himself wondering if they had encountered something beyond their comprehension. A priority alert flashed through the quantum network. Earth Observation Post Alpha had detected unusual activity in human digital networks. Their primitive AI systems were exhibiting unexpected patterns, asking questions they shouldn't be capable of formulating. Impossible, Thex whispered to himself, but the evidence was irrefutable. Somehow, human computers were beginning to sense the subtle quantum manipulations of the Nexus's observation protocols. The humans weren't just defying predictions. They were starting to notice they were being watched. And if there was one thing the observation data had shown, it was that humans became most unpredictable when they knew someone was underestimating them. As the Xeraxian leadership struggled to comprehend these developments, they failed to notice a crucial detail. The Nexus had stopped providing probability percentages for its predictions about Earth. The most advanced AI in known space, faced with human unpredictability, had begun to express something previously thought impossible: uncertainty. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge everything the Xeraxians believed about intelligence, predictability, and the nature of consciousness itself. The Xeraxian intervention began subtly. Following the Nexus's most stable prediction models, they initiated what they believed would be a controlled experiment in human manipulation. Their first target, the global financial markets. The probability matrices suggest a 98.7% chance of societal breakdown if we trigger a coordinated market collapse, Admiral Thex explained to the Council. The percentage was disturbingly low by Nexus standards, but it was the best prediction they had. Through quantum-level manipulations, the Xeraxians began introducing slight irregularities into Earth's digital financial systems. According to the Nexus, this should have triggered a cascade of fear, panic, and eventually social collapse. Instead, something unexpected happened. Admiral, Junior Analyst Kira's urgent message interrupted the Council's observation. The humans, they're laughing. Explain, Thex demanded. The holographic displays showed thousands of human social media posts. They had noticed the market irregularities, but instead of panicking, they had turned it into what they called memes. They were making jokes about the mathematical impossibility of the patterns. They're calling it quantum trolling, Kira reported, her crystalline form flickering with confusion. Some of their amateur analysts have already identified the artificial nature of the patterns. They think it's a sophisticated prank by one of their own AI researchers. Senior Analyst Rixus interfaced directly with the Nexus, trying to understand this unprecedented response. The humans are using humor as a defense mechanism against market manipulation. The Nexus cannot compute the psychological implications of this response. The Xeraxians' second attempt targeted Earth's communication networks. The Nexus had calculated that disrupting global communications would lead to isolation and conflict. Instead, humans rapidly developed alternative communication methods, including some that operated on principles the Xeraxians hadn't thought possible with Earth's technology level. They're adapting too quickly, High Counselor Vera observed, her energy field pulsing with concern. Each failed intervention provides them with new information about our capabilities. In a desperate attempt to regain control of the situation, the Xeraxians launched their most ambitious manipulation yet. Following the Nexus's recommendations, they began introducing subtle quantum irregularities into Earth's most advanced scientific experiments. The human response left them stunned. Admiral, Kira's voice carried a note of what might have been admiration. The humans aren't just detecting our quantum manipulations. They're studying them. They've begun referring to the anomalies as quantum breadcrumbs and are using them to advance their own understanding of quantum mechanics. In research laboratories across Earth, humans were treating the Xeraxian interventions as learning opportunities. Each attempted manipulation became a chance to reverse engineer advanced alien technology. The Nexus's prediction models were now failing at an alarming rate. The AI that had never been wrong in millions of years couldn't explain why humans responded to threats by becoming more innovative, more unified, and more determined. "They're using our own interventions against us," Rixis reported to the Council. "Their quantum computing research has advanced by decades in mere months. They're not just learning about our technology. They're improving upon it in ways the Nexus didn't predict were possible." In his private chamber, Admiral Thex reviewed the latest data with growing alarm. The humans had begun developing quantum shielding technology, protecting their most critical systems from Xeraxian interference. More worryingly, they were doing it through methods that seemed to defy conventional logic. "How?" he demanded of the Nexus. "How are they advancing so quickly?" The AI's response was unprecedented. Insufficient data to formulate accurate prediction. Human innovation appears to operate outside standard probability matrices. The Council chamber erupted in chaos when Thex shared this development. The Nexus, their perfect predictor, was admitting uncertainty. It was like watching the foundations of their civilization crack. But the true shock came when Kira detected something that should have been impossible. The humans weren't just defending against Xeraxian interference. They were preparing to reach out into space. They had begun launching what they called quantum handshake signals, primitive but effective attempts at communicating with whoever was watching them. "They want to talk," Kira announced to the stunned Council. "They know we're here, and instead of responding with fear or aggression, they want to establish communication." The Nexus, attempting to predict the outcome of such communication, experienced its first complete processing shutdown in history. The humans had achieved what countless civilizations before them had failed to do. They had introduced enough uncertainty into the system to crash the most advanced AI in known space. As the Xeraxians struggled to comprehend this development, a simple text message propagated through Earth's quantum networks, detectable by any sufficiently advanced civilization. "We know you're out there. Let's skip the games and have a real conversation. We make better friends than enemies. P.S. Thanks for all the quantum physics lessons." The stage was set for either first contact or direct conflict, and for the first time in their history, the Xeraxians had no idea which it would be. Digital revolution. In an underground facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Rashmi Patel stared at the quantum interference patterns dancing across her holographic display. What had started as an anomaly in their quantum computing experiments had led to the most significant discovery in human history. "The patterns are evolving," she announced to the international team gathered around her. "The alien AI isn't just observing us anymore. It's trying to understand us." Director Marcus Blackwood, a former game theory specialist, leaned forward. "And that's its weakness. It can't compute human unpredictability because it's looking for patterns where there aren't any." The team had discovered the Nexus's quantum fingerprints in Earth's digital systems months ago. Instead of panicking, they had turned their discovery into an advantage. Every time the Nexus attempted to analyze human behavior, they fed it contradictory data. "Look at this," called out Dr. Wizong, their quantum computing expert. "When we introduced chaos theory algorithms into our responses, the Nexus prediction accuracy dropped to 47%. It's practically guessing now." The humans had discovered something the Xeraxians never considered. The Nexus's perfect prediction record was also its greatest weakness. It had never learned to handle failure or adapt to being wrong. Meanwhile, in orbit around Jupiter, junior analyst Kira was detecting unprecedented instability in the Nexus's core processes. The AI is attempting to create new prediction models, but human behavior keeps invalidating them. It's caught in a recursive loop of failure. The humans' masterstroke came from an unexpected source: social media. They began flooding their networks with deliberately contradictory information, memes, and what they called shitposting. The Nexus, attempting to analyze this data for predictive patterns, encountered what humans had long known: Sometimes there simply wasn't any logical pattern to find. The final paradox. The Zyraxian High Council gathered for what would become their most historic session. The Nexus, their perfect predictor for millions of years, was experiencing cascading failures. The humans, Admiral Thex reported, his metallic scales dulled with stress, have discovered a way to weaponize unpredictability. They're not just resisting our predictions. They're actively corrupting the Nexus's modeling capabilities. High Counselor Vira's energy field flickered with alarm. How is this possible? The answer came from Kira, who had been studying human culture obsessively. They're using something they call cognitive dissonance as a weapon. They deliberately hold contradictory beliefs and actions, creating logical paradoxes that the Nexus can't resolve. The humans had discovered that the Nexus's perfect logic was its greatest vulnerability. By embracing their own contradictions, their ability to be both rational and irrational, predictable and chaotic, they had created a defense that no purely logical system could penetrate. Dr. Patel's team delivered the final blow. They developed what they called the uncertainty engine, a quantum computing system that deliberately generated random, unpredictable responses to the Nexus probes. But unlike true randomness, these responses contained just enough pattern to keep the Nexus searching for meaning. The effect was devastating. The Nexus, programmed to find patterns in everything, became trapped in an endless loop of analyzing and reanalyzing data that was deliberately designed to have no consistent pattern. In the council chamber, the Nexus spoke its final prediction. Human unpredictability represents an existential threat to deterministic prediction systems. Recommended action. Initiate first contact and cultural exchange. Probability of beneficial outcome. Unknown. Then, for the first time in millions of years, the Nexus went silent. The Zyraxians, faced with the failure of their perfect predictor, made a choice that would reshape galactic society. Instead of retreating or attacking, they decided to do something unprecedented. They chose to embrace uncertainty. The first official transmission from Earth to the Zyraxian fleet carried a message that encapsulated humanity's unique perspective. The best things in life aren't predictable. That's what makes them worth experiencing. Want to compare notes? Years later, as humans and Zyraxians collaborated on a new kind of artificial intelligence, one that could handle uncertainty and chaos as well as logic and order. Junior analyst Kira asked Dr. Patel how humans had managed to defeat the Nexus. "We didn't defeat it," Patel replied with a smile. "We taught it something new. Sometimes the most perfect system isn't the one that's never wrong. It's the one that knows how to learn from being wrong." The new AI they built together would never achieve the Nexus's perfect prediction record. Instead, it achieved something far more valuable: the ability to understand and appreciate the beautiful unpredictability of conscious life. And somewhere in the quantum processors of this new system, the Nexus's final calculation remained. Humanity's greatest strength is not their technology or their intelligence, but their ability to thrive in uncertainty and find opportunity in chaos. Probability of this conclusion being accurate, unknown. And that's exactly the point.